The women of Chainsaw Man are surprisingly genuine, which is insane because they're so manipulative, but that's actually what makes them so well written. Instead of making ideal characters you've seen 1,000 times, Fujimoto writes women who are appealing because of their flaws. But that just leaves one weird question. How exactly do you portray dishonest, self-centered characters in a genuine way? That's why in this video, I'm gonna analyze Chainsaw Man's best female characters, discuss how they represent the different kinds of common relationships, and explain how Fujimoto writes female characters everyone loves using real flaws. Just be warned that there will be major spoilers. But of course, the best example of how Fujimoto writes genuine characters is Reze. Obviously, Reze's popularity exploded after the new movie. Part of this is because she's an anime girl that goes boom. But a large part of why so many people like her is because of the way she carries this girl next door energy despite her obvious intentions. Our initial impression of Reze is that she is the perfect girlfriend, as opposed to characters like Makima and Himeno who influence Denji with their maturity and overt sexuality. Reze is the first love interest who seems to be the same age and share the same experience. They're both teenagers. Denji is actually able to make her laugh, and they just have this immediate chemistry as opposed to the other characters where Denji can never get a read on people. Of course, Reze is more experienced than Denji and teaches him a lot of stuff, but the reason their chemistry is so believable is because of Reze's girl next door energy. But obviously, this is exactly what she wants us to think, as we eventually find out that this was all an elaborate ruse to trick Denji. Reze doesn't get what she needs, so she jumps to plan B, turns into a monster girl, and tries to steal Denji as she murders everyone. At this point, Reze shows us that everything about her was performative, and she doesn't seem any better than the other characters. But the reason Reze is still viewed as the girl next door is because of the way Fujimoto twists her manipulation. As Denji guesses right away, Reze's big evil plan isn't as honest as it seems, and most of what she did for Denji was real the whole time. Granted, some of what she did was pretty transparent, like it only took about 2 dates before she was asking Denji to quit working for Makima. But in that moment, she does express concern and sympathy for Denji, and it's that concern that makes Denji trust Reze when she teaches him how to swim, a random act of kindness that she would only do if she genuinely enjoyed her time with him. And that's the beauty of Reze's character. She comes off as innocent, is exposed for being manipulative, but is then exposed again for being bad at manipulating because she's so genuine, which is exactly why we see her turn around at the train station after she finally decides to join Denji. And this is the appeal of Chainsaw Man's female characters. Reze is the best example of how Fujimoto doesn't write aspirational or idealistic women. Instead, he creates female characters who are appealing because of their real flaws. Especially in shonen anime, female characters are sold through male fantasies. Good-looking girls, girls who are obsessed with the main character, or even girls who could beat you up. But the reason so many of these characters come off as annoying or uninspired is because they're so idealistic. They're based on fantasy rather than reality, which is why Fujimoto decides to lean into those realistic flaws. In Reze's case, her appeal is based on her broken background. Almost like Terra from Teen Titans, Reze becomes even more interesting as she evolves from the ideal girl to the girl next door who needs saving. Reze is a compelling character because she seems perfect, but we find out that her messed up home life controls her decisions despite her desire to live a normal life. And that's what makes her a realistic character. She's a genuine person who struggles to express herself in a world influenced by dishonest people. Which brings us to Makima's role in this narrative. Because funny enough, most of why Reze is so manipulative is because she's competing with Makima. But obviously, nobody can be more controlling than her. Weirdly enough, this is what makes Makima such a genuine character, because her manipulative tendencies are a reflection of her biggest flaw, her struggle between her desire to be genuine and her inability to be vulnerable. Unlike Reze, who initially comes off as an innocent girl, Makima makes it pretty clear that she wants to use Denji for her benefit. But this is her appeal, because when everyone met Makima in season 1, there was a flood of memes with people simping for her and barking like a dog. With Makima, her appeal is the control she offers. Just like the way she treats her dogs, Makima interacts with Denji and everyone else by training them in exchange for protection and fulfillment. In Denji's case, he's attracted to Makima because she obscures his own thinking and tells him what he wants. It's incredibly manipulative, and Makima barely even hides it, but it enchants Denji because this control places him in a paradise where, like a dog, he gets everything he wants without any growth or struggle. Of course, the tragic irony is that Denji's choice in this relationship is taken away from him as Makima slowly transitions to subtle mind tricks to direct, Pavlovian control over every decision Denji makes. Denji gives into Makima's control because he doesn't want the responsibility of figuring out his own problems, but the price he pays for that is having all of his free will taken away. But, like I said before, Denji isn't the only tragic character in this relationship. Just like Reze continues to be genuine even though she pretends to be manipulative, Makima wants to make genuine connections, but only knows how to connect with others by dominating them. We find out in the end of part 1 that everything Makima did was to obtain the Chainsaw Devil. She hunts him down by tracking his smell, something that Denji points out when he explains that Makima only saw him as the Chainsaw Devil and never for himself. This line makes Makima seem like the ultimate manipulative girlfriend because she objectifies Denji and ignores everything else about him. But rather than play this down or try and justify this aspect of her character, Fujimoto fleshes out Makima by offering a realistic motivation. In the end of part 1, Pochita explains that Makima only wanted to form a deep connection with another person, but was always unable to accomplish that because she only knows how to dominate other people. We're told that Makima's biggest flaw is that she wants to build a genuine bond with someone else, but she can't do that because this kind of bond requires that she ignore her strongest impulses. Forming real connections means letting others into our worlds and showing them our flaws. But Makima can't do that because her sole purpose is to control others and dehumanize them. In fact, this flaw can be seen in the way she views movies. With almost every movie, Makima views them in a way that seems elitist. She breaks them down to one takeaway without any nuance. And even when she watches these movies, she never shows any emotional connection. She watches movies the same way someone flips through Tinder and swipes left on everyone, judging them in 2 seconds by one photo. That is until she watches the last movie, and she cries when she watches the two friends on screen. Here, Makima's deepest desire is exposed, her desire for a true bond between friends. But the irony is that even when Makima is being genuine, her desire is only reflected in a fictional story that's deliberately manufactured to make her feel a certain way. And that's the beauty of Makima's character. She is the epitome of manipulation, but Fujimoto gives her a compelling motivation that makes her actions believable. Because of that, even though Makima is the single most disingenuous character in the story, she still feels like a genuine portrayal of someone who only knows how to objectify and control people without being vulnerable. Fujimoto doesn't make Makima an aspirational character at all. He just makes her authentic. Although, you can just as easily argue that not all women are manipulative like this, so Makima isn't authentic at all, which is mostly true. Not everyone is a Twitch streamer telling grown men to bark. But even so, this kind of claim misses the point. Makima isn't genuine because she's controlling. She's genuine because she's flawed, just like Reze is genuine because of her broken childhood. And Makima is just one portrayal of the different kinds of relationships in Chainsaw Man. There's plenty of other female characters who aren't as manipulative, but are just as flawed. And a lot of them really aren't even love interests. Kobeni is kind of just a comic relief character, but even she gets decent writing. She comes off as the wacky character, but she has a very relatable desire to break out of the everyday struggles of normal life, inspired by her practically cosmic level of bad luck. Emeno is another surprisingly genuine character. She comes off as the older girl that just throws around her sexuality, but the reality is that she is broken. She's seen all of her friends die and has a desperate desire to prevent that same thing from happening to Aki. This desire brings her closer to Denji, who she agrees to work with so the two of them can protect their mutual friend. And of course, who could forget power? The girl Denji is kind of attracted to, but grows together with in his new home, and eventually views as his own sister. And while Power seems like just another comic relief character, she also gets some solid writing. She lies even though she's terrible at it, and she's a coward. But like so many other characters, Power has a desire to protect her friends, driven by her flaw of not really knowing how to properly socialize with others, not unlike the cat that she cherishes. Just with these three characters, Fujimoto gives us genuine female characters that don't depend on romancing the main character. That being said, romance is an important influence in the story as it ties into the broader themes of relationships and human connections. But rather than make idealistic characters or girls that are based entirely on male fantasies, Fujimoto creates authentic characters based on real flaws. At times, they can seem attractive or aspirational, but that's not the main goal. The main goal is to give these characters genuine motivations, coupled with compelling flaws. And this is exactly why Asa and Yoru are so popular in Part 2. Fujimoto doesn't make Asa conventionally pretty or confident, or really even appealing. She's awkward, antisocial, unconfident, and in the beginning of the story, she really doesn't even have a clear motivation, at least not until we get to know more about her. Naturally, this has made Asa relatively unappealing compared to more shocking characters like Reze and Makima, but there's a trade-off. The benefit of having a character as weird and overthinking as Asa is that she's arguably the best female character in Chainsaw Man so far. Mind you, it's tough to say if she competes with Makima, and even now it's still early to make that kind of call. But after 100 chapters, we can see how she represents the best of what makes Chainsaw Man's female character so special. Asa is riddled with flaws. She overthinks everything. On top of making her awkward, this also makes her kind of boring and unemotional. Or at the very least, she doesn't express her emotions in conventional ways. But the benefit to her overthinking is that it influences these compelling dialogues between her and her inner demon, an opportunity of moral thinking that's different from the way Denji views the world. Asa isn't an idealistic character when we meet her, and she's really not even aspirational because of how awkward she is. But these flaws make her authentic. The way these flaws influence her actions make her compelling. Likewise, her motivation to confront these flaws later in the story also makes her compelling. Like all of the other female characters, Asa is motivated to connect with other people while also struggling to deal with her inadequacies. It makes her weird and to many fans unappealing, but it's that weirdness that makes Asa and so many other characters genuine. And that's why Fujimoto is able to write some of anime's best female characters.